Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be jumping into the really cool world of contemporary classical music.
Okay.
And this is all thanks to you.
Right.
The listener you know, because you sent in this podcast episode called The Future of Classical Music, Contemporary Composers to Watch.
Great episode.
Yeah, it was really interesting. But we're not just going to name drop all these composers. We're going to really figure out why these people are so worth your attention.
Yeah.
Even if you don't normally listen to hardcore classical music.
Well, and I think what makes this duck dive so interesting is that contemporary classical music kind of shatters this idea that classical music is stuffy or it's stuck in the past.
Yeah.
Instead, it's really evolving and it's embracing the complexities of our world today.
It's like classical music is having this growth spurt or something.
Yeah.
It's pulling from so many different influences now.
Yeah.
The episode even talked about how it's got jazz, rock, electronic influences, and it's global and it's experimental. Yeah.
It's very experimental.
So what do you think the main takeaway is here for the listener?
I think the takeaway is that any art form, music evolves to mirror the times that it was created in. Think about how different art movements reflected the social and cultural climates of their time. Yeah. So contemporary classical music is doing that for our era.
Oh, that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
So it's like capturing the essence of the 21st century.
Exactly.
And the podcast actually says modern composers are, quote, not only preserving the classical tradition, but also reinventing it for the 21st century. So let's talk about one of those reinventors, Jennifer Higdon.
Okay.
She didn't start composing until she was 21. But she's now one of the most performed living composers in America.
Yeah.
That's so inspiring.
It is very inspiring. And I think what makes her so popular is that her music is both complex, but it's also deeply emotional.
Yeah.
So you don't need to have a music degree to connect with it.
Right.
And one of the things she does that's really cool is she uses orchestration in interesting ways.
What's orchestration?
Orchestration is basically the way that you blend different instruments together to create a specific mood or feeling.
So it's not just about hitting the right notes. It's about using those notes to actually say something deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And she does it so effectively. The podcast talks about her piece Blue Cathedral, which she wrote, in memory of her brother.
Oh, wow.
And she even uses specific instruments
to
musically represent them. So the flute represents her and the clarinet represents her brother.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really powerful example of how she uses music to convey profound emotion.
I'm getting chills just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's jump to Thomas Adès, who is a composer who seems to really love pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
We're talking mixing Baroque music with jazz, with tango.
Uh-huh.
So what is the method to this madness?
Well, he's a master of so many different musical languages. Wow. It's not like he's just throwing things together randomly.
Right.
He's weaving them into this cohesive whole, and he's drawing from the depths of each of those genres to create something that's really new.
I see.
One great example of this is his piece Asyla, which is the plural of asylum.
Asylum.
And the music itself kind of reflects this mix of refuge and chaos.
Wow, so the title isn't just a random word.
No.
It's actually a clue
to
understanding the entire piece.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that pull, between wanting safety and security and being drawn to a little bit of chaos?
I think we all have.
Yeah. I think Adès' music really makes that internal struggle something you can hear.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he takes these complex emotions and translates them into the sonic experience.
Yeah.
And so he really shows us how powerful contemporary classical music can be.
Yeah.
But he's not the only one out there pushing boundaries.
Right. The episode talks about a whole bunch of other great composers.
So many.
Like Caroline Shaw, who's doing a lot of innovative things with vocal music. And then there's Max Richter, who composed this 8-hour piece called Sleep.
Oh, no, 8 hours.
Which is intended to be listened to while you're sleeping.
Wow, talk about dedication.
Yeah, that's commitment.
That's commitment.
And then there's Anna Thorvaldsdottir, who uses nature as her inspiration to create what the podcast called immersive soundscapes.
I love that description, immersive soundscapes, because it really is about more than just, melody or rhythm. She's using the unique qualities of each instrument, the textures, the timbres, to craft these sonic environments that feel almost tangible, like you're surrounded by the sounds of nature.
It's like she's composing an entire world of sound.
It is.
And then there's Tanya Leon, who brings her Afro-Cuban heritage into her compositions, which adds another layer of richness and diversity to this whole contemporary classical scene.
Absolutely. What stands out to you about this group of composers?
I think it's clear that none of them are afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
Or to challenge conventions and to bring their unique perspectives into the world of classical music.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's so much creativity happening right now.
No, it's like a renaissance.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
And I think that's what makes this whole deep dive so interesting, is that we're witnessing this period of such incredible innovation and reinvention.
Yeah.
And these composers are proving that classical music is anything but stagnant. It's vibrant, it's diverse,
right,
and it's full of surprises.
Absolutely.
So it's less about like dusty scores,
right,
and more about discovering all these new sonic adventures.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
And speaking of adventure, the episode talks about the growing influence of technology in contemporary classical music.
Yes.
So you might think at first that technology and classical music are like at odds with each other.
Right.
But that's not really what we're seeing here, is it?
No, not at all. Technology is becoming this really powerful tool for composers. You know, think about like electronic soundscapes blending with traditional instruments.
Yeah.
Visual elements adding another layer of depth to performances.
Okay.
Even interactive elements that involve the audience.
Hold on, wait.
Yeah.
Interactive elements.
Yeah, like imagine a concert where the audience's reactions, maybe their movements or even their voices, directly influence the music that's being played.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's about blurring the lines between the performer and the listener, creating this truly shared experience.
That is mind-blowing.
It is.
It's like classical music is stepping out of its comfort zone and like embracing the possibilities of the digital age.
Yes, definitely.
And the podcast even mentions Kaija Suriaho, who integrates electronics alongside traditional instruments.
Yeah.
So it's like she's bridging this gap between the acoustic and the electronic worlds.
Exactly. Suriaho is such a good example of how technology can expand the sonic palette. Yeah.
Of classical music.
Yeah.
And it's not about replacing those traditional instruments.
Yeah.
It's about adding new colors and new textures to the mix.
Yeah, and it really challenges this idea that technology is like inherently isolating.
Yes,
you know,
so.
Like in this case, it's fostering connection and creativity.
Absolutely.
But of course, it wouldn't be a deep dive if we didn't also talk about the real world challenges that these composers are facing. And the episode talks about funding issues, the difficulty of getting their music played.
It's hard.
And even just overcoming, you know, audience resistance to new sounds.
Yeah, those are all very real obstacles for so many composers today.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think these are challenges that most artists, regardless of their field, have to contend with, you know? It's kind of like this age-old struggle of balancing your artistic vision with the realities of, you know, making a living.
Making a living.
And finding an audience for your work. Yeah, it's that balance between innovation and accessibility.
Exactly.
Which the podcast really points out is like this major hurdle that people have to overcome.
It is, how do you create music that, you know, pushes boundaries, that explores new sonic territory, while still making it engaging and accessible to an audience that might not be familiar with those sounds.
Right.
It's a real tightrope walk.
Yeah, like how do you be groundbreaking?
Yes.
But also still resonate with people.
Exactly.
But as Jennifer Higdon's success shows, it's definitely possible.
It is. And this is actually where you, the listener, come in. You have a role to play in supporting this evolution of classical music, attending concerts, seeking out recordings, even just talking about these composers with your friends. Yeah. These actions can make a difference.
It's a reminder that art thrives.
Yes.
When it has an audience who appreciates it and supports it. And I think in the case of contemporary classical music, that support can really help these composers keep pushing boundaries.
It does.
And redefining what classical music can be.
Yeah, your engagement helps to shape the future of this art form.
Wow.
By being an active listener, you become part of the conversation.
I like that.
You become part of the evolution.
Okay, so we've talked about the evolution of sound, the influence of technology, the challenges that these composers face. But despite all of that, the episode ends on a really optimistic note, doesn't it?
It does, very optimistic.
Yeah.
It points toward a future where classical music isn't just surviving, it's thriving.
Yeah.
It even mentions some exciting trends like collaborations that blur genres.
Okay.
And even the use of AI in composition.
Whoa, hold on. AI composing music?
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
It's pretty wild.
I never would have thought of that. It really shows how classical music is like embracing the possibilities of our time.
It's not afraid of technology.
Yeah.
It's embracing it.
And the episode even mentions how composers are tackling social and environmental themes in their work.
Which I think is fascinating.
Yeah.
It shows how these composers are using their music to engage with the issues that matter most to us today.
So it's not just about beautiful melodies anymore.
Right.
It's about like using music to make a statement.
Yes.
To connect with the world around us.
And that's a big part of why this movement is so exciting.
Yeah.
It's breaking down those old stereotypes about classical music, being elitist or inaccessible.
It's like classical music is finally catching up with the times.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is.
Embracing the richness and complexity of our modern world.
And so far from what we've explored, it seems like the future of classical music is brighter than ever.
It does.
Yeah.
So for someone who maybe hasn't really listened to a lot of contemporary classical music, where should they even begin?
That's a great question. And the good news is there are so many entry points. You can start by checking out the composers that we've discussed today. You know, listen to their music, read about their inspirations, and see what resonates with you.
And don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
Yeah, you might find yourself drawn to the emotional intensity of Jennifer Higdon's work.
Yeah.
Or the, boundary-pushing soundscapes of Anna Thorvald's daughter.
Yeah.
Or maybe you'll be captivated by the rhythmic energy of Tania Leon's compositions.
And remember, there are tons of other composers out there.
Oh, yeah.
That we didn't even mention.
So many.
Just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely.
So it's like we're giving our listeners this treasure map.
Yeah, a sonic treasure map.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is there's no right or wrong way to explore.
Right.
Just follow your ears and see where they lead you.
Love that. Okay, so we've established that contemporary classical music is evolving. It's embracing technology.
Yeah.
It's tackling all these relevant themes.
Sure.
But is it still classical music?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it really gets at the heart of what makes this movement so compelling.
Okay.
Because while these composers are definitely pushing boundaries and experimenting with new sounds, they're also drawing upon the rich heritage of classical music.
So they're not rejecting tradition.
No.
They're building upon it.
Yeah, they're reimagining it. They're breathing new life into it. And they're making it relevant for a 21st century audience.
It's about finding that balance between honoring the past and shaping the future.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. But let's be honest, some people might still have this image of classical music being, stuffy.
Yeah.
Or only for a certain type of person.
Right.
How do we break down those misconceptions?
I think the music speaks for itself.
Okay.
Once you experience the energy, the emotion, the sheer creativity of contemporary classical music, those old stereotypes just kind of fall away.
It's like you can't help but be swept away by the power of the music.
Yeah.
Regardless of your background.
Exactly.
Or your preconceived notions.
And that's why it's so important to create opportunities for people to experience this music firsthand.
Okay.
Whether it's through live performances, online platforms, or even just sharing playlists with friends.
Yeah.
We need to get this music out there and let it speak for itself.
I'm all for spreading the word.
Yeah.
I've got to admit, this deep dive has been really eye-opening.
Yeah, me too.
For me, I feel like it's opened up all these new possibilities.
Yeah.
For music.
It reminds us that music is a constantly evolving art form.
Yeah.
And that there's always something new to discover.
I love that. So as we wrap up this exploration of contemporary classical music, what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the most important thing is to approach contemporary classical music with an open mind and a sense of curiosity.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to explore, to challenge your assumptions, and to let yourself be surprised by what you hear.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you never know, in the process of exploring, you might discover your new favorite composer or your new favorite piece of music.
Yeah, your new soundtrack to your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's out there.
The world of contemporary classical music is so vast, and it's constantly expanding. There's something out there for everyone.
Absolutely.
Just waiting to be discovered.
So dive in.
Dive in, explore, and let the music take you on a journey.
Yeah, you might be surprised where you end up.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to our listener,
Yes.
go out and explore this amazing world.
Exactly.
AI composing music. That's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But it really shows you how classical music is like embracing all these new possibilities.
Yeah, it's like it's not afraid to experiment and try new things.
Exactly. And, the episode also mentioned how composers are tackling social and environmental themes in their work.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Which I think is so fascinating because it shows how these composers are like really engaging with the issues that matter most to us today.
Yeah, it's like they're not just writing pretty music anymore.
Right. It's about more than that.
It's about making a statement, about connecting with the world around us.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big part of why this whole movement is so exciting. It's breaking down those old stereotypes about classical music.
Like what kind of stereotypes?
Like the idea that it's elitist.
Yeah.
Or that it's only for a certain type of person.
It's like classical music is finally like catching up with the times.
Yeah, I think so.
Embracing the richness and complexity of our modern world.
And from what we've explored so far, it seems like the future of classical music is like really bright.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
There's so much energy and creativity happening right now.
So for someone who maybe hasn't listened to a lot of contemporary classical music, where should they even begin? Like, where do you start with all of this?
That's a great question. And honestly, there are so many entry points.
Okay, good.
I mean, you could start by checking out the composers we've been talking about today.
Okay.
Listen to their music, read about their inspirations, see what resonates with you.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Absolutely. Try something new.
Yeah.
You might be surprised.
You might discover a whole new sound.
Yeah. You might find yourself drawn to the emotional intensity of Jennifer Higdon's work. Or maybe the boundary-pushing soundscapes of Anna Thorvaldsdottir.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you'll love the rhythmic energy of Tanya Leon's compositions.
And remember, there are tons of other composers out there.
Yeah, so many.
That we haven't even talked about.
It's like we're giving our listeners a treasure map.
Yeah, a sonic treasure map.
Exactly.
To a whole new world of music.
And the beauty of it is there's no right or wrong way to explore. Just follow your ears and see where they lead you.
I love that. Okay, so we've established that contemporary classical music is evolving. Embracing technology, it's tackling these relevant themes.
Yeah.
But is it still classical music? Like, is it still rooted in those traditions?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And it really gets at the heart of what makes this whole movement so compelling.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because while these composers are pushing boundaries and experimenting with new sounds,
right,
they're also drawing on the rich heritage of classical music.
So it's like they're not throwing out the old rule book.
No, not at all.
They're just like rewriting it.
Yeah, they're reimagining it. They're breathing new life into it.
And they're making it relevant for a 21st century audience.
Exactly.
It's about finding that balance between honoring the past and shaping the future.
Exactly.
I like that a lot. But let's be real.
Okay.
Some people still have this image of classical music being stuffy.
Right.
Or, only for a certain type of person.
I know what you mean.
How do we break down those misconceptions?
I think the music speaks for itself. Once you experience the energy, the emotion, the sheer creativity of contemporary classical music, those stereotypes just kind of disappear.
It's like you can't help but be swept away by the power of the music.
Exactly.
No matter what your background is or what you thought about classical music before.
And that's why it's so important to create opportunities for people to hear this music firsthand.
Get it out there.
Yeah, whether it's through concerts, online platforms, even just sharing playlists with friends.
We just need to let people experience it for themselves.
Exactly.
I totally agree. I've got to say, this deep dive has been really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, for me too.
It's like it's opened up all these new possibilities for music.
It reminds us that music is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And that there's always something new to discover.
So as we wrap up this exploration of contemporary classical music, what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the most important thing is to approach contemporary classical music with an open mind.
Okay.
And a sense of curiosity.
Got it.
Don't be afraid to explore, to challenge your assumptions, and to let yourself be surprised by what you hear.
Yeah, you might even find your new favorite composer.
Yeah, your new favorite piece of music.
Or your new soundtrack to life.
Exactly. It's out there.
I love that.
The world of contemporary classical music is so vast.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly expanding. There's something out there for everyone.
Just waiting to be discovered.
So dive in and explore and let the music take you on a journey.
You might be surprised where you end up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like we've opened this door to like a secret garden of sound.
I love that. And it's just bursting with life and color.
And it's not just about listening to the music, it's about experiencing it.
Yeah.
Like letting it wash over you.
It can really change you in a way.
Yeah, it's been a really rewarding deep dive for me.
For me, too.
Because it wasn't just about like, acquiring knowledge.
Yeah.
It was about expanding our horizons.
And opening ourselves up to all these new possibilities.
Yeah. So we went from understanding how this music reflects our times to discovering all these composers who are pushing boundaries and redefining the genre.
And we even talked about how technology is shaping the future.
Right. And how important the listener is in supporting this art form.
Absolutely.
We've said that music is a reflection of society.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the rise of all these different innovative composers tells us about the world that we're shaping?
That's a really profound question.
Yeah.
I think it tells us that we're shaping a world that embraces change.
Okay.
That celebrates diversity.
Yeah.
And that's constantly pushing the boundaries of creativity.
That's a really beautiful thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
So to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you.
I hope you learned something new.
And I hope you're inspired to go out and explore the world of contemporary classical music for yourself.
Yes. Discover those composers we talked about. Venture even further. Seek out new sounds and new experiences.
Yeah.
You never know what musical treasures you might uncover.
Happy listening.
Happy listening.